Hi guys, this is your girl Wakeji Kamore and welcome to Reflections by Wakeji Kamore. Alright guys, we are continuing with the book of 1 Kings and today we are going to be looking at chapter 7. We are doing this chapter by chapter, and if you're here for the very first time, please click the notification bell so that you never miss anything, and please subscribe to the channel as well as sharing this with someone else. So again, as I mentioned, today we are going to be looking at chapter 7, which covers it is actually divided into two different parts. I'm not going to be reading it word for word, but I'm going to be telling you what is happening in this chapter. It is a pretty long chapter. It has about 50 what? Let me check. Give me a minute. 51 verses. So I'm not going to be reading them, but I will be telling you what is happening. Please find time and read it for yourself. It's pretty detailed. And this is just after Solomon had finished building the temple of the Lord. So he's finished phase 1, which is building the temple of God. And then there were other constructions that he was doing, which we are going to be covering. And then he went forward to furnish the temple of the Lord. All right, so the first part, which is verse 1 to verse 12, is basically just giving us a detail of some of the other things that Solomon built. So he's built, of course, the palace. He built the temple first. Then he built a palace for himself that took him 13 years to complete. He built a building that was called the Palace of the Forest of Lebanon. And it was a pretty big building. It was 150 feet long, 75 feet wide, and 45 feet high. I mean, he also built a hall of pillars, which was 75 feet long, 45 feet wide. And then there was this porch that was in front of the hall of pillars, which had a long canopy that was supported by pillars. He also built the throne room, also known as the Hall of Justice, which is where he sat to hear legal matters. He also built a similar living quarters for Pharaoh's daughter, whom he had married. Rather, he built like some sort of a small palace for the wife as well. And then he also built some buildings. All the buildings that he built were made from foundations from very huge rocks, a very high quality stone that was cut with saw and trimmed to exact measures on all sides. Most of his buildings were all of his buildings were top-notch, very well built, high quality building materials, and of course very expensive. And of course they took a lot of time to get done. All right, so the Bible says that he finished building all those building projects. And then he went to furnishing the temple. And King Solomon asked a man called Hiram. You guys remember King Hiram, who had provided the Lebanon trees, the forest from the Lebanon, the cedar and the cypress from Lebanon. Now he has contracted another guy called Hiram, not Hiram. And this guy was very skilled, was extremely skilled and talented in any work in bronze. So King Solomon contracted him so that he could come and do all the furnishing in bronze and all the metalworks that needed to be done in the temple. In total, this Hiram guy came and did 2 pillars, 2 bowls shaped as capitals on top of the pillars, 2 networks of interwoven chains that decorated the capitals, the 400 pomegranates that hung from the chains on the capital, 2 rows of pomegranates for each of the chain networks that decorated the capitol's top of the pillars, 10 water carts holding 10 basins, the sea and the 12 oxen under it, and the ash buckets, the shovels, and the bowls. And all this he did in bronze and metal. Bronze and metal. And looks like it was a lot of work. And the Bible says that King Solomon could not weigh all these things because they were so heavy that the bronze could not be measured. So of course he did not spare any expense at furnishing the temple of God. And then also King Solomon continued to make a gold altar. He made a gold table for the bread of the presence. He made gold lamp lampstands of solid gold. He made 5 on the south, 5 on the north, and in front of the most holy place. Please note, these were lampstands that were made of solid gold. He made flower decorations, he made lamps and tongues, all made from gold. There were small bowls, there were lamp snaffles, there were bowls and ladles and incense burners, all made of solid gold. The doors for the entrance to the most high place and the main doors for the temples with the front overlaid with gold. And then also what Solomon did at the last verse there, it says, so King Solomon finished all his work on the temple of the Lord. Then he brought all the gifts that his father David had dedicated, the silver, the gold, and the various articles that he stored in the treasuries of the temple of God. So he actually went and brought in all the other things that his father David had dedicated for this temple, and he brought them in to stay in the treasuries of the Lord's temple. And that is basically the end of that chapter. And one of the things that I learned from this chapter is first that King Solomon did not start with his palace. He started with God's temple. How many times do we start with ourselves and then finish with things of God? I mean, that sounds like it happens a lot for us. So I like the example that Solomon set by starting with building the temple and then building everything else that came after that. And then the other thing that I also learned is that he asked for skilled workers in Hiram. Hiram was extremely skilled and talented in working with bronze and working with metal. So he actually brought in someone who is skilled and talented for that specific task. So hizi stories, I know someone who can do it cheaper, wachana na huyo mtu professional, wachaneni nayo. Please let us just hire people who are professionals to do what they have been gifted to do. And then the other things that I really like is the fact that this Hiram, it's actually the Bible records that he did everything that Solomon had asked him to do. Actually, in verse 40, it says, So at last, Hiram completed everything that King Solomon had assigned him to do and to make for the temple of the Lord. So this tells us when you're contracted to do something, whether it's consulting, whether it's training, whether it's design work, whether it's accounting, whether it's as in anything that you have been asked to do, whatever task you've been asked to do, however little, however big of a project that you're leading, whatever it is, I pray that we will be known to finish well and to finish everything that we have been contracted to do. Sio kwa kazi zetu nusu at all, like we actually finish. The other thing that I learned from this chapter is that we are differently gifted. There are people who are gifted in metalworks, people who are gifted in woodwork, people who are gifted in plaiting hair, people who are gifted in doing makeup, people who are gifted in drawing. Like we are all gifted differently, and that doesn't mean that now if you're gifted in singing you're better than me, or you're gifted in woodwork you're better than me, or you're gifted in something else different than my gifting you're better than me, because we are all gifted differently, and we are supposed to appreciate that and to use our giftings for the work of the Lord. And we are supposed to use our giftings to not just serve ourselves but to serve other people as well. Those are the lessons that I have learned from this chapter. If you have learned anything afresh, anything different from what I have learned and what I have picked, please share it in the comment section and keep listening. This is your girl Wakeji Kamore, and this has been Reflections by Wakeji Kamore. See you tomorrow.